Well, good evening and welcome to the True Kids 1 Youth Mayoral Forum. I'm Sandy Campbell, the Executive Director of True Kids 1, or TK1, as we often call ourselves, and we're thrilled that you've chosen to join us here tonight. We are a Taos-based nonprofit that teaches, trains, and inspires K-12 students across northern New Mexico for this amazing, dizzying digital age. Let me give great thanks tonight to the hosts for tonight and partner on this event, the Kit Carson Electric Cooperative, and to our other official partner, the Taos News. Impartial but essential funding for this work comes from the Taos Community Foundation. And tonight, of course, is but the latest chapter in the TK1 Democracy Project, designed to amplify youth voice in decision-making. We've just completed several interviews of state legislators, and we're busy working on creating a shadow town council for engaged youth who want to participate in the decisions that will shape their lives in this town for many years to come. We have all kinds of other projects on the go, too, from student-powered documentaries on local culture, to in-school sessions on stop-motion animation, to free after-school programs on things like drone photography and recording hip-hop. We have so much fun in what we do, and we're always looking for new students to participate in our programs, or like many of the students you can't see right now, to be behind the cameras and help us shoot the various different products and projects that we do, earning wages to run these different shoots. So visit our website at truekids1.org, or even better, come to our new headquarters just north of Taos Plaza if you or your student would like to become more involved in the amazing things that we do. So without any further ado, let me now turn the proceedings over to tonight's moderators, three brilliant young women, all from Taos High School: Lilith, Isabella, and Dominique. Over to you.
Thank you. My name is Lilith Safford. I am a senior at Taos High School. This is Isabella O'Donnell Silfverberg, also a senior at Taos High School, and this is Dominique Vigil, a junior at Taos High. Let me welcome you all, and of course, you four candidates for mayor of the town of Taos, to tonight's youth forum.
Tonight we will have 5 rounds of dialogue to encourage lots of interaction among the 4 candidates. First, we'll have introductory statements responding to a specific question that the candidates have already received. We'll have a debate round featuring some of the questions submitted by students across Taos County, a bonus question round, a lightning round, and then we'll take questions from the audience. For those of you watching from home, you can type your audience question in the YouTube comment section. Now, let me explain the logistics of the debate round, which will follow introductory statements. This round is a little complex, so I will explain carefully. In a minute, you will all choose a letter from a hat, A through D, and then in another drawing from this hat, or several drawings, we have all possible combinations of the letters A, B, C, and D, and that will allow us to randomly pair you together for 2 questions. In one question, you will answer first, and then in the next question, you will respond. You'll have 1 minute for your initial answer and 1 minute for your response, and then we'll reverse orders and ask another question. So we'll continue like this until all possible combinations of candidates have taken place, and we have 12 questions total. Let me pause now and ask if you have any questions before we continue. Okay.
Awesome. So, also, Dominique has 2 red cards. She will raise 1 card when you have 10 seconds remaining in your response, and she will raise 2 cards when your time is complete. We may also cut your audio if needed. Hopefully this isn't necessary, but we understand there's a lot to be said.
Following the debate round, after all 12 questions from the round have been answered, they'll all go up on screen, and then you may choose any one question to speak to. You will have, again, 1 minute for this response.
Then we'll move on to the lightning round. In this round, we'll ask each of you, starting with candidate A and rotating through, to answer a question in 15 seconds or less. For this round, you'll see the red card when you have 5 seconds remaining, and then again, both cards when your time is complete. Following this, we'll go to the audience questions. And again, for those of you at home, please type your questions into the YouTube comment section. Candidates, do you have any questions before we begin? Okay, then Dominique will go around with the hat. Each of you will draw one piece of paper, and if you'll please read to us what you got, it'll be A through D.
D for Dan.
A.
B.
That leaves me the perpetual C.
Okay, now let me invite you all to make your opening statements, starting with candidate A, so candidate Maestas, and then moving through to candidate D, D for Dan. You will have 1 minute to respond. As a reminder, the opening question you are set to respond to is, what's one thing you'd like to tell the many future and first-time voters watching tonight's youth forum? As a reminder, Dominique will raise 1 red card when you have 10 seconds remaining and 2 red cards when your time is complete. Again, the first question is, what's one thing you'd like to tell the many future and first-time voters watching tonight's youth forum? Candidate A, Maestas, you have 1 minute.
To future and first-time voters, you are coming of age in a world of uncertainty. In the near future, we will face the consequences of climate change. The actions in Europe bring us closer to war, while the income gap has pushed more and more into poverty, while the rich get even richer. As a millennial and Gen Z, we didn't create the problems of the world, but it is going to fall upon us to fix them. I understand how daunting this can feel because I felt it myself. It's tempting to check out. Despite the odds against us, we all have a choice. We do nothing, or we come together to face what is before us head on. Our generations must unite to save this planet and save ourselves. How do we do that? Part of that is voting, but voting is not the only way to be a citizen in democracy. Taos needs your participation, your return, and your action. What we choose to do matters now more than ever. To future and first-time voters, I ask you to vote, but don't stop there. Keep up the action because I'm in this with you, come hell or high water.
Thank you, candidate Maestas. Candidate Oswald, you have 1 minute for your response.
I'm very happy to be here tonight. I'm happy that you young people are hosting a forum for us and that we have an opportunity to meet in person. First-time voters are not always young people in this country. Immigrants who become new citizens, and recently the freedom for people who've been convicted of felonies to vote have all come to the table. So to first-time voters, I would remind them that there are many things in life we don't get to choose, like the laws that we're governed by. But we do, in a democracy, get to choose the people who represent us to create those laws or to fight against those laws and dismantle them. And today, in the world, we are seeing a non-democratic country invade a democratic country. And the people in that country have lost some of these freedoms of choice. So I would encourage you to remember just how powerful this choice is and to exercise it at every opportunity you can.
Candidate Oswald, thank you for your response. Candidate Sweet, you have 1 minute.
Friends, neighbors, Taoseños, thanks for coming tonight. Thank you for hosting us. To the first-time voters, I'd say, what a fun step forward in your future. What a great opportunity to participate in the wonderful country that is the United States of America. Go throw your first vote and make it the first of many. There are a lot of people who will advertise the politics of immediacy to you for the course of your life. I would urge you to take a breath, slow down. It's not the most important thing in the world all the time, but your participation is the most important thing. Don't let fear control your vote.
Thank you, Candidate Sweet. Candidate Baroni, you have 1 minute for your response.
Thank you, and good evening. I'm Dan Baroni, and I love Taos. I and we have chose to raise our family here because Taos has so much to offer. It's beautiful, good water, clean air, and diverse cultures. The people here truly care about each other. Success comes from working together. A perfect example of this is our two high school basketball teams, who teaches us that the importance of working together to reach a goal. They have overcome obstacles as a team and have come out victorious. I consider myself a team player that has assisted in bringing millions of dollars to better our community and various events to bring us together. If we continue to work together in our community, we can make things happen. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. We will now move on to the debate round. Dominique will randomly select a candidate pair. As discussed, each candidate will answer first and then rebut another candidate's answer. We will flip a coin to determine which candidate goes first. The first letter on the card will be heads and the second will be tails. Our first pairing is candidates A and candidates A and D, so Maestas and Baroni. Candidate Baroni, you will be answering the question first, and candidate Maestas, you will be responding. So, the first question is, there are many issues at play in this election, and some have said that Taos is on a precipice right now. With today's decisions sure to echo for decades, in that light, what are the top 3 things you think Taos youth should know that are under discussion right now that will directly affect our lives? Candidate Baroni, you have 1 minute.
One of the biggest issues right now is we need additional housing for our residents of our community. Affordable housing is one of the biggest issues that we continue to talk about. But also wages in our community. How do we get those wages up? How do we educate our youth of our community to make sure that they have an education so that they are comparable and be able to accept those jobs at a higher rate? We have continued to move forward in generating affordable housing. We have created 30 new lots. We have created 72 new units in one area and another 72 in another area. I think this is an opportunity that shows our community that we're doing something for the region. Another thing that we're looking for right now is we are moving forward at the airport for a tech park because jobs, good paying jobs, are essential. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. Candidate Maestas, you now have 1 minute to respond.
Thank you. I would agree that housing is the number one issue. It costs $500,000 now to buy a house in Taos, and that prices out many of us. Second, I think it's very important that we diversify the economy. We've been so dependent on tourism that when things are in a bust, like during the pandemic or in 2008, the whole town suffers. And third, I would like to see educational opportunities that bring career technical education. There are great opportunities in welding, being an electrician, solar, green energy. This is the direction of the future. And if our students coming out of the high school and coming out of UNM Taos were prepared in these fields, there's a lot of opportunity for good paying jobs that could afford a home. Last, I'll say $15, $20 an hour goes further in places where housing is cheaper.
Thank you. So the next question, candidate Maestas will answer first and candidate Baroni will respond. And it's kind of continuing in the same vein. So the question is, many of the questions we have received or been requested to ask center around the affordable housing issue in Taos. It is the first thing on many student minds, especially for those of us about to graduate and move out into the world. So what are some specific things you would do to address the affordable housing problem? You have 1 minute.
Two things I would like to do. First is the creation of a community land trust. This is an organization that owns land underneath the home and can stabilize home prices. This is not an option for everybody. If somebody wants to own a home outright, there's options for them for that. But a community land trust provides another option for somebody who is trying to get out of the trap of low-income housing and rental property. Second, I would like to see a high-value transfer tax. This is a tax placed on homes over a certain value. We could say, for instance, $400,000. Homes over that value would be have an additional tax, and as a municipality, we can take that money and use it towards other affordable housing projects. Those are just two examples. I think we've also just got to look around the country, see what other people are doing, because this is a problem not just in Taos, but everywhere.
Thank you. Candidate Baroni, your response?
You know, we have a shortage and we continue to move forward, but the short-term gap is we need to get some affordable housing built as a gap stop. But a home ownership is the most important thing, so people can build equity in their homes. You know, in the idea of a land trust, you don't own the land under your house, so it's never really your house. So if you do development to your house, if you add on to it, if you landscape it, you are not rewarded for those things because there's a cap on the money that will be spent. And that tax that we're talking about is against the law. If you really look at it, you're taxing a person because he makes more than someone else, and that's against the law to do. So again, we need to move forward and create home ownership for our people right here in Taos, and we can do that by affordable land.
Thank you. Just a reminder, you'll have an opportunity to respond to any question again after this round is over. So we're moving on to the next pairing.
Okay, so now we will have candidates B and candidate C. Alrighty. So, candidate Sweet, you will begin, and candidate Oswald, you will respond. This first question is, the town of Taos and Taos County have often had a challenging relationship as independent but highly connected communities. Many of us who live in Taos County are directly affected by decisions made in the town and vice versa. Many of us watching tonight, for instance, cannot vote in this election even though we may live seconds away from those who can. In this vein, what are some key things you would do to help strengthen this important relationship?
I think there's a couple of interesting ideas floating around. I hear a lot of business owners who have businesses in town want to change their vote to be a town vote so that they feel a little more incentivized. I thought it might be interesting to have a trade where they swap their county vote for a town vote by showing up with a current business license and paying a processing fee and sorting that out. That's something we could set up. We could change around the demarcation of the town and the county lines in order to have our zoning lined up a little better so that people who live closer in town limits but are in county limits feel like they're part and parcel of the voting process. Other than that, man, that's how America is set up. You live in a place, you vote there. That's the deal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Candidate Oswald, you have 1 minute for your response.
So, as elected officials, you swear an oath to follow and uphold the laws and the Constitution of the United States, as well as the state of New Mexico. And the New Mexico State Constitution has a law that says to vote somewhere you have to live in that municipality or in the boundaries of the municipality. And our community is distraught by the size of the boundaries of the municipality of the town and the size of the greater community. And like you, there are thousands of people who would like to participate in this election and they can't. And I believe our community needs to have a conversation to discuss options and solutions to that problem. And one might be expanding the boundaries of the town. Another might be usurping the town municipality and consolidating to one government, and that's the county government. And another might be keeping things as they are right now. But the community needs to have that conversation, and if I'm elected mayor, I'd love to facilitate it.
Thank you. All right, now, candidate Oswald, you will respond first, and candidate Sweet, you will respond to her response. The next question is, this community is home to a sovereign nation. What are some key things you as mayor would do to advance relations between the town of Taos and the Taos Pueblo?
I love this question. Our relationship with Taos Pueblo can be strengthened quite simply by inviting someone from their tribal government to sit at the table and be a part of the conversation.
It's a great question. I think I'd start with finding out what would best serve the Pueblo. How can we be a better neighbor to them? Do they want a seat at the council? Is that something they're interested in at all? The real question there is how do we be good neighbors to them? The death and removal of the tree in the middle of the plaza disturbed me greatly, just as a citizen a couple years ago. That nothing else has been done in order to kind of solidify our partnership in a big public way is kind of challenging for me. I'm a big fan of everything this border town has to offer in terms of going back and forth with different cultures, and I like the idea of bringing somebody to the table, Genevieve. I think it's really smart, and it's weird that it hasn't been done before. But it leads me to ask, is that something they want?
Thank you.
So we'll now move on to the next pairing, which will be candidate C and candidate D. So candidate Brony and candidate Sweet. Candidate Sweet, you will be answering first, and candidate Brony, you will be responding. The question is, many people in the community are struggling to find health care right now, with clinics too busy to schedule appointments or simply overwhelmed and exhausted from the recent Omicron surge and many other public health issues. As mayor, what's one thing you would do to address the provider shortage and create a stronger local healthcare network?
What a great question. I think that the start is looking at what we have and what we can build on, and then looking at the needs of our community. Taos's average age is 50 years old, which means that there's a lot more elder care coming our way than any of us want to really talk about. There's a weird thing happening nationwide where travel nurses are getting paid more than regular nurses. So all the young nurses are traveling around the country and making more money. So we end up paying the travel nurses more than we're paying the local nurses. That needs to be addressed. I think I would reach out to the hospital and see what they need in terms of expansion. Go over to Taos Whole Health, see what they need in terms of expansion. Is there a way to draw more doctors to the area? Yeah, that's how I'd go about that.
Thank you, candidate Brown.
Great response, Mr. Sweet. And so, working with the hospital is going to be the biggest initiative we have, is try to figure out where we're going to be short, and working with UNM to try to educate more doctors, more nurses, more first responders. And I think if we can get that education component done, we can fill those gaps that we see within our community. Will it be instant? No, because it takes time to get those degrees on the books. But we need to see if we can incentivize some of these doctors or other opportunities that we have to incentivize them to actually find or make Taos their home, so that we can attract those doctors and those clinicians that we need in our community.
Thank you for your response. We'll now switch. So candidate Brony, you'll be responding first, and candidate Sweet, you'll be responding to him. So this question is, among youth in Taos, there is some confusion about the role local government has to play. Many kids aren't sure what the mayor or town council even do. What are some steps the town of Taos can take to better amplify youth voice in our local decision making?
So that's a great question, because before COVID, we did have a youth council person, and we will continue to appoint a youth council person and ask for recommendations from the school. It's important the school's involved in those decisions, because those decisions impact everyone. We work with the school board closely. We work with the superintendent of schools closely, and we need to continue that relationship so that we can garner a better relationship with the youth of our community. And the ways to do that is have youth involved with the community.
Thank you. I would have loved the opportunity to have that role on the town council. Candidate Sweet, your response?
I think bringing back the youth position at the town council is a really good idea. I also think that leaning into more of kind of the trade school that's happening at the high school and the civics classes that are happening over there, you know, we have a real shortage of volunteers at the firefighter level and at the first responder level and at the search and rescue level. And those are courses that we could teach through the high school if we really wanted to, and figure out, you know, figure out how to train young people who are interested in serving their community, how to get them on the path. You know, we have the dual credit classes going on over there through UNM. I'm sure we could expand that into those sectors as well. Half of the involvement is you know, making them involved. I would say there's not a lot of crossover between the town youth and the city council, both in decision making and in asking for their input. And I think that one of the biggest things we could do is ask for their input.
Thank you. I will move on to the next pair.
So next we have candidate A and candidate C. So candidate Maestas, you will begin, and candidate Sweet, you will respond. Here is the first question. Today's technology sector is continuing to evolve at a dizzying pace. My generation is digitally native, and life is becoming increasingly virtual. Within this context, what are some things the town of Taos could do to help keep up with technology?
Great question. We really got to expand broadband, and we had an opportunity with the town of Taos to expand broadband with the EDA CARES Act grant. However, instead, the current administration decided to spend that money on the airport. There are a number of communities all across the country that use that to expand broadband. Espanola, just down south, they created a pipe fitting workforce training center with the same grant funds. We've got to make sure that there is fast internet for everybody in this county. And the county is much bigger than the town of Taos, but we are an important player, and making sure that we get that out to everybody. As a school board member, I've advocated to make sure that we have coding classes, and I know it's a little bit of trouble to try and get these. We've got to find the right instructors. As a teacher, I saw many of my students not able to type, and that's like a life and death skill these days, right? Being able to type.
Thank you so much for your response.
Man, the digital divide. Having grown up half in, half out, I feel your pain. It's a more public life than I would have wanted. The town can lean into its infrastructure so that the infrastructure is in place for people who want to use digital things. When digital businesses arrive here, they're presented with one option, maybe two, for a real broadband experience in terms of uploading. This kind of creates a problem, especially in the film industry or in the games industry, where if you're serving a large number of people, we're not able to do that. The Kit Carson initiative is great, and it puts us light years ahead of a lot of other small towns, but we could do more.
Thank you so much for your response. So now we'll switch. Candidate Sweet, you've had a lot of time
This is
to
great.
talk.
Here we go. Just ride it all the way out.
And candidate Maestas, you will respond. So the next question is, the past 2 years of disruption and online learning have brought to light the kinks in local schools, including inadequate access to technology, lack of educational support for those who need it, and an inability to keep kids in school. In your opinion, what are some essential measures the town of Taos might take to improve the local education system?
Oh, what a great question. I would urge the school board to dismantle their reliance on federal money and to really look into the community to see where we're where we're not. The federal standards that we're following were built in order to facilitate creating people to work on an assembly line. Things are manufactured in place now. There's a whole new way of thinking about digital technology, thought technology, and production technology that we're just stuck in this old way, and we're not really going forward as hard as we can. And that's like a national level conversation. But Taos is the kind of place that can lead those conversations, and we have the intellectuals on hand to think about those kinds of things. And I would urge us to kind of lean in that direction. As far as real world, what we can do tomorrow, I would really lean into making sure all the students who have access to computers share their knowledge with their classmates, and really work at building the relationships.
Thanks so much for your response. Candidate Maestas?
Thank you. I would say we should be wary about turning away federal money. Title I is a very special fund that purposely supports low-income students, struggling students, and gives us the opportunity at Taos Municipal Schools to provide those additional supports to people who really need it. So although there are some standards that come with accepting federal money, there are standards that come with accepting state money. We're trying our very best to make sure that every student gets as much as they need. Like you just said in your question, though, the past 2 years have been very tough. And we still have students. I ask on the school board, we have about 30 students that we don't know where they went, and they haven't come back. And we don't know if they went to a different school or are just not coming back. So there's a lot that we need to do. And it really, the town government doesn't have a direct impact with the schools, but we can partner more and make sure that we're working together and supporting each other in grant funding.
Thank you so much for your response. So now we'll move on to the next pairing. Dominique?
So we have candidates A and B, so candidates Maestas and Oswald. Candidate Oswald, you will answer first. Candidate Maestas, you will respond. So the question is, there is only one mode of public transportation in Taos, and it can be difficult to access due to stop locations and sparse pickup times. For many kids in Taos who don't have the privilege of a car or a driver's license, transportation is the biggest roadblock between them and extracurricular opportunities or even seeing friends. Seen in this light, the public transportation issue can become both an educational and a mental health issue. As mayor, what would you do to address this?
Thank you for this question. I know that transportation for low-income families and young people is really a difficult scenario. And transportation is not limited to cars. Legs are transportation. Bicycles are transportation. I would really like to see our pedestrian infrastructure built out to make it safer. I know that I don't ride bicycles because I know too many people who've been hit on them, some who've been killed. And walking in town and outside of town is very difficult because many of our streets don't have safe pedestrian walkways. So I would like to see the town of Taos build out that infrastructure, make long-term investments so that we can not only create more access for people to be safe pedestrians, but also counter climate change in the process.
Thank you. Candidate Maestas?
You are absolutely right. Transportation means a lot of students can't participate in sports. They may not have a ride home. They can't participate in a lot of events, see their friends. Expanding in the blue bus, I think, is helpful. But as we've already seen just this year alone, it's hard to find drivers. So we're having trouble staffing the blue bus. But even the routes themselves, if you live far away from one of the routes, it's difficult to get there. I would also like to see some more advancement into electric technologies. There's electric bicycles. You might see them in some of the bigger cities in New York, where you don't have to use your leg power to get from one side of town to the other side, and then you can put it to charge in an electric vehicle spot.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. Candidate Maestas, you'll answer first. New Mexico has experienced a drought for the past 20 years, which has caused hardship in this community that relies so heavily on acequias. With increasingly limited resources, what role does the town have to play in concerning our access to water?
This is a very important question because we've been seeing this trend over time, and I hear from my grandparents about what it used to be like in Taos and the snow that we used to get, and not just when they would go to school uphill both ways. Working together with everybody that has a role and a stake in protecting our water is very important. The Abeta settlement is very complicated. Helping to educate the public about all the different parts of the Abeta settlement and really taking a look at private wells. That is one thing that is not in the Abeta settlement, that is extracting water from our aquifer, and we honestly don't know how much water is coming out because none of these private wells are metered and reported to the state engineer. So we've really got to have a data-focused effort to take a clear look at what's happening with our aquifer underneath and bring everybody to the table and figure out real ways of conservation so that way the aquifer doesn't dry up and Taos is gone in 20 years.
Thank you. Candidate Oswald.
This is the most contentious political conversation in this part of the world for hundreds of years. And we have lots to think about here because the problems we're seeing now are going to continue and probably escalate. Yes, private well water use is something we absolutely need to be addressing, and we probably want to look at expanding utility services so that we can meter and limit the use of water by individuals. And we also want to consider regenerating some of our dilapidated or disappearing watersheds, like the Rio Fernando watershed, which has basically disappeared through town and used to be the greatest provider to our underground aquifer. So we need to look at this from many different angles and, again, have larger community conversations about the concessions we're willing to make now for the benefits we'll have in the future.
Yeah, I've worked on the Rio Fernando River at Rio Fernando Park for the past 2 years, and I can confirm how it has gone from a river to nothing. It's, yeah, thank you. We'll move on to the next pairing now.
So next we have candidates B and D. That means candidate Oswald and candidate Baroni. Candidate Oswald, you'll begin. So, in recent years, we've seen again and again the incredible importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, in our society. What would be some initial DEI actions you would take as mayor?
What a great question. And I think I already answered it. I think one of the most important things we can do in this community is invite everyone to the table, to the conversation, which includes our very close neighbors at Taos Pueblo. So bringing a representative from Taos Pueblo onto the council to be a part of the conversation, voting, non-voting representative, will be a wonderful place to start. As a woman, I'm running for mayor because I'd like to see more women represented at this table.
Thank you. Candidate Baroni?
You know, and it's a great answer. And again, we have continued to invite the Pueblo in every aspect. We have signed MOUs with fire. We have signed MOUs with police. We have, I actually went with the tribe to Washington, D.C. to fund the Abeta settlement. And as you know, the Pueblo continues to be part of our celebrations. Every celebration that we have on the Pueblo, in the town, we invite the Pueblo to be a part of it. We are trying to be good neighbors to the whole community. We try to invite everybody to our initiatives. It's a great opportunity to get the kids, our youth, involved in more of the activities that we continue to do, and hopefully that I know part of this is they talk about gentrification on the plaza. It's about reaching out to those businesses that own those businesses and talk about what's going on there.
Thank you for your response. So now we will switch. Baroni, you answer first. We all know the tremendous importance of Taos Ski Valley to our local economy. Tell us, what are some important issues requiring further discussion between the Taos Ski Valley and Taos to ensure equitable and sustainable tourism?
So one of the biggest things is there's an opportunity right now to be able to partnership with the Ski Valley for affordable housing. They just hired a a consultant to do public-private partnerships. And we're looking and talking with them currently to figure out if there's an initiative that we can work with to build affordable housing. So one of the other initiatives is the part of the tech park and the aviation park that we've been talking about for the last couple of years and has been partially funded. I think if we can get them involved in that component, I think that is a big initiative that would enhance the capability of our youth to look forward to those jobs that will be available through that technology and aviation park.
Thank you. Candidate Oswald?
The Taos Ski Valley Corporation is one of the bigger employers in the region, and without them we would have maybe seen a greater economic difficulty in the last couple of years. And I have constantly thought as a business owner about how much money that they had to invest with no sight for a return on that investment in the last couple of years, keeping finances in our local regional economy through people that they've employed who were spending their money here. One of the most important things that they need to consider in their relationship with our community and sustainability is watershed. There's not a lot of water in that part of our region, and the faster that organization grows, the more limited that resource will become. So that needs to be another community conversation, and one that's taken very seriously. And again, what kind of infrastructures can be put in place so that that problem doesn't become more severe as more people visit here?
Thank you for your response. So now we'll move on to the next pairing. Or that's it. Sorry, we'll move on to the next round.
So now all the questions in the debate round have been asked, and you will all have the opportunity to pick any one of these questions to respond to. So, yeah, so they're all up there. Candidate A, Maestas, you will begin.
Can I get a minute to look?
Yeah, oh, yeah, for
Absolutely.
sure. Just let us know when you're ready.
I'd like to go back to number 2, to address the idea of the high-value transfer tax. This is a tax that is already implemented in Santa Fe and was recommended to us by the North Central New Mexico Economic Development Department in our Affordable Housing Master Plan. So it is not illegal. There are already communities who are doing this. So this is a chance for us to create some revenue so that way we have some funding to address affordable housing. I think this is really the number one issue to a lot of these concerns, because if we want to bring doctors to Taos and social workers to Taos and counselors to Taos, they're not going to come here if they can't afford to live here. We're seeing it on the school board. We've had teachers that have left to other communities because they just can't afford to live here. So we have to address this issue. This is like the key piece to all of these, making sure that people can live here.
Thank you. Candidate Oswald.
I would also like to speak to question number 2, and there's a lot of ideas at the table, and I think that idea is a great idea. One of the things we really need in our community is a housing authority, a central organization for all of these housing projects to work through. There are already nonprofit organizations working on addressing the housing issue, and housing for our community includes not just affordable housing or low-income housing. It also includes housing for transient homeless people or people who are coming out of hard situations and need to have some interim housing. I've been speaking with lots of people around the country about how they are addressing these problems. I have a friend who's on the council in Telluride. They have the high-value transfer tax. They also charge new builds with the charge of building housing for their employee workforce. There are deed structures that become occupancy restrictions and make housing more available for people who are living and working in the region. And there are just so many options, but we need a central authority to move them all through.
Thank you. Candidate Sweet, have you chosen your question?
Yeah, I think I'll go with number 9.
Okay.
the transportation issue. I think that whenever I think about transportation in Taos, I think about buying my first bicycle and riding my BMX around Taos. There was a lot more 2-tracks. There was still the dips. There was still less, half as many people lived here. So the main roads weren't out of the question, but you still didn't want to ride on them. But all the back streets were kind of okay. As we've developed, we've gained a lot of little pocket parks around town. I don't know if you guys have ridden across Salazar in the middle of a hot afternoon, but it kind of sucks. If we connect all our parks together, we might have an opportunity to build a nice little loop around town. I think that's one issue. I like Genevieve's idea of following through with our plan to make a safe to school route. That's a good start. I'd also lean into the acequias and see if there isn't a way we could kind of get a little bit more walkway access through the acequias.
Thank you. Candidate Baroni, have you chosen your question?
And I'll go with number 3. I think it's important that we have a relationship with our town and county. Needs to have a relationship. As you know, the town oversees the Youth and Family Center. We have a full-time paid fire department. We have police. We have a library. And this is all paid by gross receipts tax. And we need partners in these initiatives because it doesn't only encompass the 5,000 people that live within the town. It encompasses the whole region, the 36,000 people that we have. So if we want better bike paths on a road, and that's the initiative, every road that we have installed, we put a bike path on. That relationship with the town, they helped us with the initiative at the Youth and Family Center to put a new roof on it, to make a better, so we can continue to foster this relationship so that we can work together. This is something that I'm almost out of time.
Thank you. So now we're going to move on to the lightning round. So in this round, you will each answer the same very short question, starting with candidate Maestas, moving through, and then we'll start with candidate Oswald and move through again. You will each have 15 seconds to briefly answer. In this round, the red card will now represent 5 seconds remaining instead of the previous 10. And the first question will go to you, candidate Maestas. Part of being an informed voter is knowing who your candidates are as everyday people. So tell us, what is one thing that you do just for fun?
I listen and play to music. That's my stress relief. I had a band in college, and although I've put the guitar down, I still play drums once in a while. And that's what I like to do to relieve stress.
Thank you. Candidate Oswald?
Lately I've been thinking I don't have enough fun. I really love to dance. Dancing is a lot of fun. I like to hang out with my family and my friends, and I love to do yoga, which is not necessarily always fun, but it's good stress relief. I like to walk. I like to walk my dog, play games.
Thank you. Candidate Sweet?
I like to go on adventures.
Thank you.
Ready?
Yes.
She didn't call on me, so I was like,
We weren't ready for candidate Sweet's response.
it's great to see the smiles on our kids. I love public service. I love being out there with our kids when we light the Christmas tree. I love when we're out at the football field flipping burgers to raise money for our community. There's just so much in our community that we can be involved in, and that's what I love to do. That's my passion.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this next question, we'll start with candidate Oswald. Out of all the available elected positions, why are you running for mayor?
I would really like to see some better leadership at the table. I'd like to see some fresh ideas, and I'd like to see someone taking charge and being in the seat facilitating the conversation between constituents and the council.
Thank you. Candidate Sweet.
What was the question? I lost my train of thought.
Out of all the available elected positions, why are you running for mayor?
Oh, I'm running for mayor because I really feel like it's the most visible place where my set of leadership skills is useful. It's that simple.
Thank you. Candidate Baroni?
You know, during COVID, the last 2 years, we've been kind of limited to the things that we were able to do. And I think if we can continue the momentum that we had before that, the roads, the services that we have, we continue that, the recycling, those opportunities that we haven't been able to address because of COVID.
Thank you. Candidate Maestas?
Thank you. I've been on the town council for the past 4 years, and I really feel like I haven't had the opportunity to push some of the things that I would like to see for the town. So I'm giving up my seat on the council to run for mayor.
Thank you.
So now we will begin with candidate Sweet. Entering an official municipal government position can have many challenges and opportunities. That said, what's the very first thing you would do if elected as mayor?
Try and recover from the shock of being elected as mayor. That would be my first response. And the second would be to identify all of the things that the town has been putting off the last 8 years and figure out my list to attack.
Thank you. Candidate Baroni?
The first thing that I'd have to do, which is a part of our responsibility, is I would have to reappoint a new manager. Mr. Bellis has asked not to be reappointed. I'm currently seeking applications. I've interviewed a number of people for that position in the event or when I get reelected.
Thank you.
First thing I would do, cut my term by 9 weeks and realign our elections in November. So that way everybody remembers you vote in November and that's it.
Thank you.
First thing I would do is celebrate being the first woman mayor of this community in the nearly 100 years it's existed. And then I would appoint an interim manager. I have someone slated. And then we would work with the town council and a hiring board to hire a long-term town manager.
Thank you.
So the next question, we'll start with candidate Baroni. If the federal government, hypothetically, granted the town $30 million to spend on infrastructure, what's one thing you would spend it on?
If depending on what kind of rules and regulations came with that money, affordable housing would be number one. Infrastructure would be number two, because without infrastructure, making sure that we have the right water, the right sewer, we wouldn't be able to build the affordable housing that we need. So we need to make sure that we have infrastructure.
Thank you. Candidate Maestas.
$30 million. I would partner with UNM Taos, bring a career technical education program, train our students to build our affordable housing and build our infrastructure. That way we keep that $30 million here and cycling around in our economy.
Thank you. Candidate Oswald.
$30 million is a lot of money. We'd spread it out across the organization. I'd like to see the fire department and police department see some of that money for their infrastructure, water and sewage, public works department, sidewalks, streets, and then we would declare housing as infrastructure, and we'd put some of that money there.
Thank you. Candidate Sweet.
You're not going to leave the size of this bounce castle. It's so big. I think $30 million, as Genevieve said, that's a lot of money. And I think that Pasquale's on the right track when he is looking for ways to spread it around the community. I think partnerships and keeping it here would be my number one goal.
Thank you.
So now, again, we'll begin with candidate Maestas. In your opinion, what is the most important part of the relationship between town council and mayor?
I think the council serves as oversight, making sure that we are connected to our community and that our constituents are having their views heard through their elected officials, and making sure that we have a balance of power.
Thank you. Candidate Oswald?
Yeah, it's the mayor's job to make sure that the conversation between the constituency and the council is becoming the policies that we are implementing in the community.
Candidate Sweet?
Yeah, that's the mayor's job. Looking at how the council is doing their job and making sure that the ideas that they bring forward and pass are implemented within the town structure.
Thank you. And Candidate Baroni?
The mayor's responsibilities is to oversee those initiatives that are brought forward by council and make sure that they're heard and they get on the agenda and they are vetted by our attorney and make sure that they meet all the criteria that is brought forward.
Thank you.
For this next question, we will start with you, candidate Oswald. Poverty is a major issue for Taos and the surrounding county. As mayor, what's the first thing you would do to begin to address this issue?
Poverty is the issue. Everything else that we see as an issue stems from poverty. We need to fill out the Planning and Zoning Commission, we need to fill out the Planning and Zoning Department, and we need to make it easier for new businesses to establish themselves. And then we need to declare a livable wage so that the people who get employed by those businesses get paid well enough.
Thank you.
I think the town's job is to lead the way, but not to declare what the way is. It's very easy to bring up what we're paying our town employees. It's very easy to fill out those jobs and make it easy for new businesses to start in Taos and to go after digital businesses.
Thank you.
Lead by example. I think if we're talking about a living wage and wages, we need to raise our wages at town hall first. It does cost, for every dollar that we give in wages, it costs us $400,000, and we have to have reoccurring revenue to be able to do that. But we need to start at town hall first.
Thank you.
In the words of my comadre Corilia Ortega, focus on generational trauma and healing, because our people are trapped in cycles of poverty and substance abuse, and until we address trauma, we're not going to get out of that cycle.
Thank you. So now we'll start with you, candidate Sweet. There have been many delays and difficulties in establishing a detox center in Taos. If you are elected, when can we expect an up and running detox center?
As soon as we can get one running. It seems really straightforward that it needs to happen, and it's one of those pieces where the town should be leading the way. At the end.
Thank you.
We were just waiting for the hospital to release the building. The hospital was using a building that we are dedicating to that service, and we're just waiting. It is being released. We already brought it before council and ready to be moved forward on.
Thank you.
The detox center has been closed since before COVID, so the town needs to get out of the way, let the county take the lead. They're ready. They have a program. They have a provider. We just got to get out of the way.
Thank you.
As soon as we can.
Thank you. So for this next question, we will start with you, candidate Baroni. The district attorney's office is flooded with low-level drug-related crimes. In your opinion, should the town prioritize decriminalizing the use of narcotics to help to provide some relief to the criminal justice system?
Just depending on the amount of violations that have been violated, and I believe, I don't think we need to decriminalize them, no.
Thank you. Candidate Maestas.
If we look to other communities like Seattle that have decriminalized, they are seeing incredible rates of people getting treatment and help.
Thank you.
I feel like this is a question I would like to hear the constituents speak on. I feel like that is not something that I would like to make a blanket decision on, but I do believe that addressing the trauma in this community means lowering the level of criminalization for drug use.
Thank you. Candidate Sweet.
I think violent crimes take precedence, and if there's a bunch of low-level crimes getting in the way of solving murders and physical violence, then dump it.
Thank you. So we have made it to our final round, and now we'll turn.
We don't really have any audience questions.
No audience questions. Okay. Well, I guess that concludes our forum for tonight.
So thank you all so much for coming out tonight. We appreciate your answers so much. Good luck on March 1st, and we look forward to many more opportunities for youth voice in future local decision making.
And on behalf of True Kids 1, we're both deeply, all of us are deeply grateful for your time here tonight and wish you all the best. For those of you from home, Thank you for joining us tonight, and we hope to see you at True Kids 1, any True Kids 1 event really soon, in person at our headquarters, or even at the TCA for our Youth Media Fest that will take place in May. Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you.